You ever walk into a place thinking it's just another errand, just another box to check off your list, and then bam, something happens that flips your whole day upside down? That's exactly what went down with Lena Washington on a sticky August morning in Charlotte, North Carolina, when she strolled into First Crescent Bank with a check in her hand and no clue she was about to spark a fire. By the time she walked out, she'd turned a personal slap in the face into a reckoning for an entire institution. And trust me, you're going to want to hear how it all unfolded. It was one of those late summer days where the air feels like it's clinging to your skin, and Lena, she was just trying to get through her to-do list before meeting her best friend, Tasha, for lunch at this little diner they loved. She wasn't in her usual power suit, the kind she wore when she was leading workshops or sitting in boardrooms today. It was just a flowy green blouse, white capris, and her favorite sandals, her hair pulled back in a loose bun. She wanted to blend in, just be another person running errands, not Lena Washington, the woman who'd spent years teaching financial literacy to folks in neighborhoods the banks usually forgot about. She'd chosen First Crescent's uptown branch on purpose, nice, polished, all gleaming glass and marble, the kind of place that screams money and stability. She figured it'd be quick. Deposit a $50,000 check from a series of community workshops she'd run, funded Get Thisbe, the bank's own outreach program. The check was her pride, not just for the money, but for what it meant. Hours of work, late nights planning, helping people take control of their futures. She held it in her hand, running her thumb over the crisp paper, feeling that quiet glow of a job well done. But the second she stepped into that lobby, something felt off. You know that feeling when you're being watched, but also ignored. The marble floors sparkled, the brass chandeliers gleamed, but Lena's eyes caught the pattern right away. White folks in line were getting called up to the tellers in minutes, warm smiles and all, while the handful of Black and Latino customers waited and waited, even when teller windows sat empty. Lena, she'd seen this before. Years as a consultant on equity had trained her to spot bias like a hawk spots movement in the grass. She took her place in line, clutching that check, trying to stay calm, but after 20 minutes of watching people who'd come in after her get waved ahead, that calm started to fray. Her chest tightened, not with anger yet, but with that familiar sting of being made to feel invisible. Finally, a teller's window opened, and Lena stepped forward or tried to. Before she could reach the counter, a man in a sharp navy suit cut her off, smooth as a knife through butter. His nameplate read Elliot Mercer, branch manager. He had this smile, all teeth and no warmth, like he'd practiced it in a mirror. "I'll take care of this myself," he said, like he was doing her a favor, gesturing toward his desk in the corner, his hand hovering just close enough to her arm to make her skin crawl. Lena followed, keeping her face neutral, but inside, she was already clocking him his quick glance at her outfit, her purse, like he was sizing up whether she belonged here. Elliot took the check, holding it like it was a piece of trash he didn't want to touch. "This is a substantial amount," he said, raising an eyebrow, tilting the paper to the light like he was auditioning for a crime show. Lena noticed a guy in a wrinkled blazer at the next teller, depositing a check just as big. No questions asked, no theatrics. She pointed it out, her voice steady but sharp. "That gentleman over there's depositing a similar amount. No issue. Why the extra scrutiny for me?" Elliot didn't even blink. "Every case is different," he said, his tone clipped, like he was shutting down a child asking too many questions. But he kept going, flipping the check over, inspecting her ID, her business card, asking where the money came from. Each question laced with this heavy pause, like he was waiting for her to trip up. "This kind of sum is unusual for a personal check," he said, dragging out the word personal like it was code for something else. Lena kept her cool, explaining it was payment for her workshops, but Elliot wasn't buying it. You could see it in his eyes. Risk, to him, wasn't about numbers or data, it was about who he thought looked risky. And Lena, in her casual clothes, with her brown skin, didn't fit his picture of someone who belonged holding a check that size. Outside, through the big glass wall behind him, workers were tugging at a tarp covering something massive across the street, but neither of them noticed, not yet. Elliot was too busy playing gatekeeper, and Lena was too busy holding her ground. Then it happened. With this smug little flourish, Elliot set the check on his desk and tore it clean in half. The sound sharp, final cut through the lobby like a crack of thunder. Gasps rippled from the other customers. A woman in line whispered, Can he even do that? Lena froze, her heart pounding, not from shock, but from the heat of humiliation rising in her chest. Elliot didn't stop there. He folded the pieces and tore them again, letting the scraps fall like confetti. I'm sorry, but this appears fraudulent, he said, his voice flat, like he was reading from a script. The lobby went dead quiet. Every eye on Lena, some curious, some embarrassed, some looking away like they'd seen something they shouldn't. Lena didn't flinch. Years of navigating boardrooms, of being the only black woman in the room, had taught her how to keep her face still when she wanted to scream. Can you provide documentation for why you destroyed a financial instrument without verification? She asked, her voice low, deliberate, each word landing like a stone. Elliot's smile flickered, just for a second. We don't document fraudulent items, he said, doubling down. But you could hear the crack in his confidence, like he knew he'd just painted himself into a corner. That's when the tarp outside finally fell away. A burst of color flooded through the glassed giant billboard, bold against the Charlotte skyline, showing a young man in a Charlotte Hornets jersey, mid-dribble, sweat shining, a grin that radiated pride. Above him, in huge letters, investing in tomorrow. And right beside him, the First Crescent Bank logo, gleaming like a badge of honor. That young man. He was Darius Washington, Lena's son, a rising NBA star, and the face of the bank's big community campaign. The irony hit like a freight train. The same bank plastering her son's face on a billboard had just shredded her dignity in its own lobby. The room shifted. Whispers grew louder. A guy in line craned his neck to look outside, muttering, "That's the Hornets kid, right?" A teller, a young woman named Kayla, glanced from her computer to the billboard, then back to Lena, her eyes wide with realization. Someone near the door leaned over and whispered, "That's gotta be her son." Lena caught their stares, but she didn't move, didn't gloat. She just sat there, in a leather chair she'd claimed in the middle of the lobby, her purse on her lap, the torn check pieces tucked inside like evidence. She wasn't leaving, not yet. Elliot, still at his desk, was typing furiously, probably drafting a report to cover his tracks, calling it a fraud prevention win. He hadn't looked outside yet, hadn't seen the billboard. His phone buzzed regional office. The screen said, but he silenced it, too focused on his version of the story. Lena, though, she saw everything. She saw Kayla shuffling papers nervously, stealing glances her way. She saw the customers whispering, piecing it together. And she saw the billboard, Darius's face towering over the street, a reminder of everything she'd fought for, everything she'd built. Her phone buzzed to a text from Darius. "Mom, they just unveiled it. You see it yet?" She didn't reply, not yet. She was too busy watching Elliot dig his own grave. Then Kayla approached, her steps hesitant, her voice soft. "Ma'am, is there anything else we can help you with?" It was clear Elliot had sent her to nudge Lena out the door, to make the problem disappear. Lena smiled, just enough to unsettle her. "Yes, actually I'd like to see your Community Reinvestment Act files. They're public, right?" Kayla blinked, caught off guard. Most folks didn't know about the CRA, the law that says banks have to prove they're serving everyone, not just the right kind of customers. Before Kayla could answer, Elliot swooped in, his voice tight. "We don't provide that to customers," he said, waving Kayla away. Lena didn't miss a beat. Actually, Regulation BB, Section 228.43, says every branch has to keep those files accessible. She turned her tablet toward him, the FDIC page open, the rule highlighted. Elliot's jaw tightened, his cool slipping. "Our system's down," he said, smooth as ever. "Come back another day." "I've got all afternoon," Lena replied, settling deeper into her chair, her eyes locked on his. The lobby felt like a stage now, every customer, every teller, waiting for the next move. Elliot's phone buzzed again, regional office, again. He ignored it, but you could see the sweat starting to bead on his forehead. Then the door swung open, and a courier walked in, holding an envelope marked Urgent Executive Division. He handed it to Kayla, who passed it to Elliot. He tore it open, his eyes scanning the page, and you could almost hear his heart drop. It was a directive from HQ. Review all denied transactions from the past month, with demographic data. The timing? Too perfect to be a coincidence. Elliot looked up, his gaze landing on Lena, suspicion creeping into his eyes. He forced a smile, thin as paper. "Maybe there's been a misunderstanding," he said, his voice strained. Let's discuss reissuing your check in my office. Lena didn't budge. I'd prefer to keep this public, she said, her words sharp, since my humiliation was public. The room went electric. Heads turned, whispers stopped. Elliot's phone rang again, and this time he answered, his voice starting confident but cracking as the caller spoke. When he hung up, he looked at Lena like he was seeing her for the first time. Ms. Washington, he said, softer now. It seems your check was valid after all. And yet you tore it up without checking, Lena shot back, her voice calm but cutting like a blade. Before Elliot could respond, the doors opened again, and in walked Monica Reynolds, the regional director, with the head of HR and the bank's diversity officer, a guy named Marcus Tate, trailing behind her. The lobby went still, like the air itself was holding its breath. Monica walked straight to Lena, her voice warm but firm. Ms. Washington, I came as soon as I got your message. She turned to Elliot, her eyes narrowing. Mr. Mercer, we need you in the conference room. Now. Elliot froze, his face a mix of shock and dread, like a man realizing he'd just stepped on a landmine. Lena stood, not triumphant, but resolute, like she'd been preparing for this moment her whole life. As Elliot followed Monica to the back, every step echoed like a nail in a coffin. Lena glanced outside, at Darius's face on that billboard, and felt a knot loosen in her chestnut relief. Not yet, but the start of something bigger. Inside the conference room, the air was thick, like a storm about to break. Elliot sat across from Lena, his hands fidgeting, his usual swagger gone. Monica didn't waste time. Explain yourself, she said, her voice like steel. Elliot leaned on his go-to defense. The transaction didn't match standard activity. I was protecting the bank from fraud. Lena let him talk, let him wrap himself in policy, but she knew what he wasn't saying. She'd heard it before, how procedure could be a shield for prejudice, how risk could mean you don't look like you belong. When he was done, Lena leaned forward, her voice steady. Protecting the bank means protecting its community, not just the people you think fit the part. If your policies only guard against certain faces, they're not policies theory barriers. Marcus nodded, jotting notes. Monica asked, what would make this right, Ms. Washington? Lena could have gone for Blood Elliot's job, an apology, a payout. But she wasn't here for that. I want this to stop happening, she said. Mandatory bias training, every employee, every year, tied to their reviews. Transparent logs for every denied transaction, with clear criteria. Quarterly audits to catch patterns. And a public statement people need to know you're owning this, not hiding it. Elliot shifted, muttering, we can't air every internal process. Lena's eyes locked on his. Transparency isn't weakness, it's proof your values aren't just a slogan on a sign. The room went quiet, the weight of her words sinking in. Monica nodded. We'll start immediately, and we'd like you to advise us, Ms. Washington. Lena gave a small smile, the kind that says, I'm not done yet. 6 months later, that branch didn't feel like the same place. The marble was still there, the chandeliers still sparkled, but the vibe? Totally different. Tellers greeted everyone the same. No quick glances to size you up. A digital screen in the lobby showed wait times, transaction stats, all out in the open. Lena's training program wasn't just a one-off, it was mandatory, built on real stories, including Elliot's. He wasn't fired. He was reassigned to training, telling new hires how he'd let bias cloud his judgment, how it cost him his authority. It was awkward, sure, but it was real. Marcus got promoted to Director of Inclusion, with power to stop shady decisions before they hurt anyone. Lena's scholarship fund? It exploded, reaching kids across 3 states. Every award paired with financial literacy classes she designed herself. The Billboard got a makeover too. Darius was still there, but now it was about real people, a teacher who got her first mortgage, a mechanic who started his own shop, a single dad who used a grant to open a food truck. Darius narrated their stories, saying, it's not about might, it's about all of us getting a fair shot. Lena loved that line because it cut to the heart of it, being seen, not as a stereotype, but as a person. That August day, when Elliot tore up her check, Lena could have walked away, let the humiliation swallow her. Instead, she turned it into a tool, carving out space for something better. She didn't just change a bank, she changed how people walked through its doors, how they were treated, how they were seen. And that's the thing. Injustice loves silence, thrives when we're too tired or too hurt to fight. Lena fought, not with a raised voice, but with questions, with facts, with a vision for what could be. So here's where I leave you. What would you have done in Lena's shoes? Would you have stayed, demanded answers, pushed for change? Or would you have walked out, let it go? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me about a time you faced something unfair or saw someone stand up and make a difference. Let's keep this conversation going, because stories like Lena's, they don't just inspire a demand we do better together. Hit that subscribe button, share this video, and let's keep shining a light on the fights that matter.